On the business desk at this hour, we look at continued analysis on South Africa's economic outlook, remaining positive. This time around, we take a look at the BankservAfrica Economic Transactions Index report. It's projecting stronger economic growth despite high inflation. For this conversation, we are joined by Economist Mike Schussler. Mike, thank you so much for your time. Let's talk about this improved and gradual improvement in the outlook for South Africa's economy. What are we basing this on?
Well, this is basically an index that is made up out of electronic transactions that go right through the economy. BankservAfrica sits in the middle of the economy, and we're monitoring at the moment the amount of money flowing through there every month is in the region of over R1 trillion. So it's a very broad indication of our economy. And if we take away the impact of inflation, which we think is going to be inflation, we can see that the quarterly growth is about 2.4%, but the growth on a year ago is very strong at 6.5%, given that last year, March, was also quite a strong growth of 5.8% on the year before that. So, quite frankly, we're looking very, very strong at the moment, which is a bit unexpected, I guess. But there are other indicators like car sales that are showing the same trajectory.
And that's better than expected growth in terms of projections, Mike, are quite encouraging. But at the same time, when we look at the South African economy, we are also comparing it to pre-pandemic levels where we were in a precarious economic situation.
Yes, but right now the level has just beaten for the second month in a row, the pre-pandemic level on the transaction side. It doesn't mean that the GDP will break it, but I have a strange feeling that we will see a much stronger GDP in the first quarter than most analysts expect. Analysts, according to Bloomberg, expect a 1.8% growth in the first quarter. I think it will be over 2%, quite likely even 3%. And that's going to start this year off very, very strongly. The problem, however, is I agree with certain problems coming like the higher inflation, oil prices, petrol. Now we've got load shedding and the rain. There will be probably a lot less positive growth in the second quarter, but at the moment, I think commodity prices being very high have really carried the economy for South Africa.
Just to pick up on that last point that you speak of in terms of the negative contributing factors that we may face, the report also notes that not all industries are sitting in or swimming within the same positive climate.
No, exactly. I mean, we will see tourism come back, for example, but we can see from the passenger numbers and from many other indicators that tourism isn't back yet. And I mean, that's a large sector if we think about it, because it includes things not just hotels and tour buses, but rental cars, courier shopping, certain restaurants are geared towards tourism. So ultimately, that needs a long time still to come back from the pandemic.
Yeah.
But at the moment, if you go to other places where we've seen record high coal prices, iron ore prices, good platinum and gold prices, it's certainly helping a large part of the South African economy, along with agriculture, I would say, at the moment still. So we are in the pound seats more so than most people expected. It doesn't make everybody happy. Certainly, I think the consumer is going to come under a lot more pressure. But at the moment, up to March, it was looking very, very positive.
Of course, the consumer is already under pressure, Mike, but the geopolitical matters that are unfolding and the effects on the economy with regards to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, how much of this positivity locally is expected to cushion that impact?
Well, you know, if you look at the coal price and the iron ore price, I think, and the gold price even, the war has had a positive impact on those, but it's obviously also pushed up the oil price. And that's our biggest import. So three of our big exports out of the big five are doing very well because of this. Motor vehicles is not doing so well. And then the import side, obviously oil prices are costing us a lot. But it's a situation where we've got three things for us and two things sort of against us. And I think under those circumstances, it looks like it's had a bit more positive impact at the moment still on us. But obviously, as the world economy slows, a month or 3 or 6 down that line, it will impact South Africa. There's no doubt about it. So we do expect Europe to slow. We expect America to slow. Obviously, the participants in the war are slowing already. So that will have a negative impact. And then we have in China, we have Shanghai at the moment in lockdown, which would have a similar impact to what we had in March, April of 2020 without our lockdowns, but the impact on the supply chain. So there are huge problems still.
Is there anything to be said, though, about policy and economic policy that would be aimed at cushioning that consumer in South Africa that we described as already under immense pressure, especially looking towards capitalizing on this marginal growth in economic projections?
I think what the government has done with selling the oil reserves is certainly a very good idea. It certainly helped the South African motorists, and we're all dependent on car transport and bus transport. We don't have much in trains anymore. So that has really been helpful. The other thing I think we should be looking at is how we can make use of this export opportunity by guarding our rail lines and fixing them quickly, because I think there's certainly billions of rand being lost every month as long as the coal and iron ore prices are high, particularly the coal price, and that would help South Africa a lot. I don't know how else we can cushion the consumer, because we don't have that much room to maneuver, but if we do get a bit more inflows, we could perhaps subsidize the fuel for another month or so.
That would be a great idea. Thank you so much for your time. That's Economist Mike Schussler talking to us about the latest projections are better really in South Africa for economic growth for the first quarter, and the expectation there is of a near-term outlook that has continued to improve. That's where we leave it as the business desk for this evening, taking a final look at how the markets closed in this negative trajectory.